Hello everyone, welcome to the talk. I'm Aditi. I work at VMware on TKG platform. Today, me and Naveed will share you how you can debug Kubernetes node without using Docker. So first question that comes to our mind is why we need this. So in Kubernetes 1.2 release, it was announced that it is going to deprecate Docker shim. To understand what Docker shim is and how the deprecation can affect you, we need to understand how Kubernetes communicates with container runtimes. To communicate with container runtimes, Kubernetes uses a gRPC interface called as Container Runtime Interface. Docker shim is the CRI implementation for Docker, which is maintained by Kubernetes community. Kubernetes only deprecated use of Docker as a container runtime. Docker images and Docker build tool will work same as before, as they follows OCI image spec. Let's see the reasons behind these deprecations. If we use Docker shim as a container runtime, the request from a kubelet to container runtime goes through many levels, and it can have some performance implications. The second reason is Docker is a complete set of tools that provides lots of functionalities like building images, networking, storage that Kubernetes does not need. The third reason is maintenance burden of Docker shim. But we are quite familiar to use Docker CLI to troubleshoot Kubernetes container, images issue, node issues. Like we are quite used to use like commands like Docker images, Docker inspect, Docker execs. So let's see what other alternatives are available if we do not have Docker on our node. So there are some tools to help you. The first one is CRI-CTL. It talks to the CRI implementations of the runtime. The second one is nerdctl. It is a Docker-like CLI for containerd. The third one is CTR. It is a de facto CLI that comes with containerd. Now let's explore CRI-CTL. So using the CRI-CTL info, you can get various information about the node. Status of the node, network status, CNI config, what CNI plugins it is using, information about low-level container runtimes like runc, CNI status, etc. You can also inspect a container. So this is the container I have created a few hours ago. Let's inspect this. You can get a lot of information by inspecting a container. Like its status, the image it is using, logs of the container, commands that are running in the container, container capabilities. If you are running into some cap issues, mount information, and like it will go on. Okay. So it gives you a lot of information about your container. Okay. C group path, what namespaces the container is in. You can also run, you can also use debug option with CRI CTL that prints the whole API response from the container runtime. Let's see this. Sorry, it is --t. Okay, so you can see it will tell you what complete container response you are getting from container runtime, and can figure it out if something is missing or you are facing some issues. Okay, you can also use CRI/CTL to create containers, pods. Sometimes it happens that you are facing some issues that you are not able to figure out. It is from kubelet, or it is from container runtime, or it is from somewhere else. So to debug that, you can directly create containers or pods with container runtimes without involving kubelet. So to create containers and pods with CRI/CTL, you need to create some JSON files. Okay. So for pod, I have created this JSON file. I will use the runp command to create a pod. Yep. So let's see the pod status. Now we can create containers in the pod. So to create containers, you also need to create a JSON file. You need to give the pod ID first. Then the container JSON file, then the pod JSON file. We need to start the container also. So the container is running. You can explore lots of other commands with CRI/CTL using the help option. So this is all about CRI/CTL. Now there is one more tool called as nerdctl. Now Naveed will walk through you how you can use nerdctl. Thank you.
nerdctl command line interface has same US as of Docker, so users can use nerdctl and Docker interchangeably. As you can see on the screen, these are the different command groups being provided by nerdctl. There is container, network, volume, namespace, system, and image command groups, and all the functionalities under those command groups. These are the same functionalities as you get on Docker CLI, and the command paths are same. In addition to these utilities, nerdctl also gives you login and logout for container registries. It also gives you top events and system info commands with which you can figure out the details as you would do using the Docker CLI. Let's look at the demo. Here on this node, I've got container deconfigured and nerdctl installed. Let's begin with nerdctl version command. It prints the client version as well as the container runtime version here. You can also print the system information using nerdctl info or nerdctl system info command. These are the alias of the same command. It prints you the operating system details, kernel details, and what all components are configured in your server. What's the storage driver, what's the C group driver, and all that information. On the right-hand side, I am going to run nerdctl events command that you can run to monitor the events that are happening in your node. With that in place, we will begin with exploring what all nerdctl has to provide. So if you print the help command, we can see here that the command help section looks like how it is for the Docker. And here you can see the management commands as well. So let's begin by creating a simple container. So here I'm creating the Nginx container. As you can notice, the syntax of the command is exactly same as the Docker CLI. It prints the container ID after successful creation. And as you can see here, the event is recorded at container create, and all the details of the container spec are present here. Let's look at the PS command is same as the Docker PS command, with which you can see the running containers. You can also look at the logs of the containers. Say if you are debugging your container on a Kubernetes node and you want to inspect what are the logs of my container, you can use nerdctl logs command. As you can see, this prints the output in exactly same fashion as the Docker CLI. Let's press Ctrl C to close that. nerdctl also has compose commands. So I'm going to use this compose command to bring up a MongoDB, Nginx, and Flask app. This is to duplicate creating a few containers on the node and looking at various properties of it. So as it's creating container, as you can see on the right hand side, a bunch of containers have been created. I can notice using PS commands, they just started. I can see logs of those commands to check if those are started correctly or not. You can see it started the worker process. I can also use the top command to make sure the process is running in my container or expectations. So if I have to debug something, I can use the top command using nerdctl as you have been doing with Docker to check the processes, their paths, the commands that's running inside it. All right. Let's look at other aspect of it. For example, we can look at the volume command group. You can see what all it has to provide. So nerdctl volume ls will give you what all volumes are present on your node. So you can inspect an individual volume here. And also look at, if you want to look inside the volume, what all data is present. So if your application is not behaving as expected, you can use all these commands to inspect volumes, go inside the data directory and inspect those files that are relevant to your application. That's for the volume. Let's look at what network subcommand command group has. So with network subcommand, you can list, you can inspect nerdctl network inspect. So it will give you details about this particular apps network. So it prints you the CNI version that's being used, the CNI plugin here. That's 040. It gives you other details about, for example, what's a subway, what's a subnet, what's a gateway. There's also a port command on nerdctl which you can use to list the ports for a container. of example, if you want to see, say, for example, this Nginx image, you can see that this Nginx container port mapping to the local host machine. You can also list namespace, nerdctl namespace, and printing ls will give you the currently there are 14 images. There are 19 images that are running in the default namespace with 9 volumes and 4 containers. You can also list all the exited containers here with ps-a. So at the moment we don't have any. We can kill a container as well. So I'm going to kill this container, and ps-a will show you that it has exited. You can look at the logs, how the container exited. So I think that's about it for the demo.